All right, 11:06 at night, and the question is, why are shiny objects so shiny? Meaning, why do we feel attracted towards pursuing something that steers us from the path that we are on? But there's the question. Are we actually clear in the first place of what path we are on? Or is the shiny object syndrome due to finding our path? Well, the goal is that we find out, first of all, apart from all the opportunities that we perceive for whatever we can pursue, to find out what is our path deeper and underneath all of the opportunities, meaning what are our strengths and weaknesses? And I want to ask you, what are your strengths and weaknesses? What is it that comes natural to you? And yes, life is not just about happiness, there is also a sense of duty and a realism that comes with life and doing what is required, of course. But we should not optimize for happiness because the seeking of the happiness makes you look for it, and in that affirming that you're not there. So in the same way as you say, oh, I got to finish these emails, man, I got to make more money, I just got to be more relaxed, I just got to be more patient. What you're doing is you're basically saying something, and the undertone of that is that you're not. Instead of saying, I got to be patient, which if you really listen to that and feel into that, you're basically saying, I'm not patient and I dislike that I'm not. Instead of, you can just say, I am patient, I relax. I am patient and relaxed. I am patient and relaxed. Now, whether you believe in incantations and affirmations or not, but like if you say those things to yourself, even if it's just silently in your head, you may as well not say this at all and actually just be patient or do the things that you got to be doing, and then you have all of the time that you need to rest. Or if you say these things anyways, don't say the wrong things in the way of, I don't want to tell you what to say and what not to say. But it's dumb. It doesn't make sense. It is not helpful to say it in the way that I got to be more patient, because you affirm, the undertone of that is that you're affirming the reality of the opposite being the case. And so what was the point? That is a good question indeed. Well, anyways, we should find out what is our unique set of strengths and weaknesses, that which comes natural to us. All right, happiness. That was the point. Exactly. We should not be we should not be optimizing for happiness, because that basically makes us look for it. And in looking for happiness, the very act of looking for happiness affirms to ourselves that we are not there. So we're looking for it, but this anxious looking for happiness basically affirms that we are not there. So if we orient our life towards looking for happiness, we affirm that we are not there. In the same way as we run around like an idiot saying, it's like, oh, I got to be better, I got to be more patient, I just got to be on time, I got to be on time for this meeting, just be on time and relax. And so we can decode all of that as well. Why are people like that? But that goes too deep and into complexity. That is not the point here. The point is shiny object syndrome and how to avoid that, or how to combat that. How to destroy that. Do we combat that, or do we just go over it? Yeah, we just get over it, right? And so now let's get practical here. What makes us be prone and act out the actions that are described as shiny object syndrome? Well, first of all, as I said, it could be that we don't know what our path is in the first place. Meaning we don't have an idea of what is our direction in life, where are we actually going, and whether this is that vehicle or that vehicle. We need to find our sense of direction and purpose in life, because yeah, if you're just pursuing an opportunity, you will never get to this deep seated sense of confidence that you know that you can rely on yourself, because you don't just want to bet on AI. If you derive, and that's one thing that I also see in the industry, if you derive all of your sense of certainty and self-assurance from the power of the technology, basically makes you affirm that you don't have any power within yourself, meaning any value or worth within yourself, and you derive all of that just from the technology. We want to be careful of that. So we want to find out what is our path, our unique set of strengths and weaknesses that we can rely on even beyond this that technology. All right. If we have that, and if we don't have that, so if we have that path clear, then we want to find out what is it that makes us steer into directions that are taking us off the path of our direction. It can be fear, for sure. Oftentimes, that's why it's important to talk to somebody about the things that you're going through with the shiny object syndrome and anything else. To me as a coach, as a professional, or just to anybody, really. But you gotta share. You got to share. You got to share with people what you're going through. And if you're not going to hire a coach, then share that with anybody that is close to you and that you've built enough relation and goodwill with to say, I really need to bounce this off you, can we talk about it? And so if you then do, you realize that your thoughts start to clear as you verbalize them, because if you just have those thoughts in your head and you're going through those patterns in your own mind of like, should I do that and should I do that, but this and why not, you get stuck. That's why you have to actualize that by actually verbalizing it out aloud to somebody else and then talk it through. Oftentimes shiny object syndrome is due to fear, and that's quite obvious, because usually when you think something is the way that you think it is, then usually what I mean is when you think that you have shiny object syndrome because of fear, you're usually right. Usually we have some kind of intuition. People always tell me when they consult with me, but I'm not sure if it's that. I don't really know if that's affecting me so much because of that. When there's some psychological explanation, it usually is exactly that. So if you sense that, there's a good chance that it really is. Right? It really is that. So fear. What is the fear? Well, first of all, the fear of commitment. What if the one thing fails? Right? If you put all of your energies into one basket, that's counterintuitive, right? Because we think the diversification of that would make it more likely. It does not make it more likely. It makes it very unlikely that you will succeed at all. So what you're actually trying to accomplish, you're actively sabotaging with that. So the intent is the right one, basically wanting a guarantee for your success. But you got to be aware of this pattern, that it's not helpful. In the same way as when you want to coerce somebody to do what you want them to do, in the sense of like, anyways. All right, well, yeah, as I said, let's wrap up the video. First of all, it's going to be fear. It can be fear of commitment and fear of success also. So number one could be the fear of failure, that the one thing that you commit to will actually fail. But there's a deeper realization to that is, if I truly did everything right and committed myself to just one thing and gave the best that I can, and this is especially for people who have never had any serious degree of success with kind of the first thing that they start, or the first thing in that industry, or the first thing for a long time. If they are not coming from a successful business, people are prone to that they fear of what it would say about them if they did everything that they could and there would still not be enough. And with that, I'm going to leave you today.